They say that desperation makes you blind. Looking back, I think that's exactly what happened to me. My name is Elias, and 6 months ago I was drowning in debt. My student loans were overdue, my rent was late, and I was eating 1 meal a day. So, when I saw the job listing for a fire lookout in the Bitterroot National Forest offering 3 times the standard salary, I didn't ask any questions. I didn't ask why the position was open in the middle of the season. I didn't ask why the interview lasted only 5 minutes, and I certainly didn't ask what happened to the last guy. I just took the keys, drove 4 hours up a lonely gravel road, and locked myself in a glass box 60 feet above the ground. The tower was isolated. Just me, the wind, and miles of endless green pine. The first thing I found wasn't a fire extinguisher or a map. It was a laminated sheet of paper taped to the main radio console. It's titled Protocols for Tower 4. I thought it was standard procedure, until I actually read them. Most of the rules were boring: check in every 4 hours, maintain the generator, keep the windows clean. But then, as I read further down the list, the instructions became disturbing. Rule number 6. If you see a fire burning blue in the north quadrant, do not report it. Turn off all lights and lie flat on the floor until sunrise. Rule number 7. The wildlife here is aggressive. However, if you see a deer standing on its hind legs walking towards the tower, close your eyes. It is not a deer. And finally, rule number 8. This one was handwritten in shaky red ink at the bottom of the page. If the radio turns on by itself between 3:00 a.m. and 3:33 a.m., do not answer. Even if it sounds like me. Even if it sounds like you. I remember laughing when I read it. I actually laughed out loud. I thought Arthur, the previous ranger, was just pulling a prank on the rookie. I crumpled the paper up and tossed it in the corner. I spent the first 3 nights enjoying the solitude. The view of the stars was incredible, untainted by city lights. I drank coffee, read my books, and followed the normal rules. I completely ignored the weird ones. That was my first mistake. It started on the 4th night. A heavy storm had rolled in, burying the mountains in a thick, suffocating fog. You couldn't see the ground from the tower catwalk. It felt like I was floating in a gray void. Around midnight, I was reading a book when I heard it. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It was coming from under the floorboards on the trapdoor. Now remember, I'm 60 feet up in the air. The only way up is a narrow wooden staircase. No animal should be able to reach the trapdoor that easily. I grabbed my heavy flashlight and the flare gun. My heart started to race. I crept to the window and shone the light down through the glass, illuminating the stairs. Nothing, just the wet wood glistening in the rain. I sat back down, trying to calm my breathing. Maybe it was a bird, maybe the wind. Then I looked out toward the north. Through the dense fog, I saw a flicker of light. It wasn't orange like a campfire. It was a pale, sickly blue. My stomach dropped. The rule immediately flashed in my mind. If you see a fire burning blue, do not report it. I instinctively reached for the radio mic to call base. My thumb hovered over the button. Don't do it, a voice in my head whispered. Just follow the rules. Trembling, I killed the lights in the tower. The room plunged into darkness. I lay flat on the cold linoleum floor, barely daring to breathe. For an hour, I lay there. And for an hour, I heard something walking on the catwalk outside. It didn't sound like boots. It sounded like hooves. Heavy, wet hooves slapping against the metal grating. It circled the tower, pausing at every window. I could hear it sniffing the glass, breathing heavily. When the sun finally rose, the blue fire was gone. The sound stopped. But on the glass of the north window, right where my head had been, there was a smear of something greasy and black. I should have quit that morning. I packed my bag, but the radio didn't work. The storm had knocked out the transmission tower nearby. I was completely cut off. No cell service, no radio, just me and the woods. Night 5 was worse. The silence was heavy, like a physical weight pressing against my ears. I sat in the corner, holding a kitchen knife, my eyes glued to the trapdoor. 3:00 a.m. The digital clock on the wall flickered, and then KHHHKKKK. The radio, which had been dead all day, suddenly lit up. The static hissed, filling the small room. I froze. Rule number 8. If the radio turns on between 3:00 a.m. and 3:33 a.m., do not answer. I stared at the green light of the receiver. The static cleared. A voice came through. Elias, come in, this is dispatch. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. It was Sarah, my supervisor. Her voice was warm, calm, and familiar. Elias, we know the storm knocked out the comms. We have a repair team at the base of your tower right now. They can't get the security gate open. Buzz them in, will you? I stood up, my legs shaking with relief. Thank God. It was just a repair crew. I reached for the button on the console that controlled the electronic gate at the bottom of the stairs. My finger touched the plastic button, but then I stopped. Elias, are you there? It's freezing out here, honey. Open the gate, honey. Sarah was a strict ex-military supervisor. She had never called me by my first name, let alone honey. She barely even smiled. I looked at the clock, 3:15 a.m. I pulled my hand back as if the console was burning hot. Elias, the voice changed. It wasn't Sarah anymore. It sounded deeper, distorted, like audio being played backward and then forward. Open the gate, Elias. I stayed silent, backing away into the shadows. Open the gate, the voice screamed. It wasn't coming from the speaker anymore. It sounded like it was coming from inside the plastic of the radio itself. Then the voice changed again. It shifted into a sound that made my blood turn to ice. It was my voice. Please let me in. It hurts. It hurts so much out here. Elias, opened the door. I'm cold. I grabbed the heavy metal chair from the desk and smashed it into the radio console. Plastic shattered. Sparks flew. The voice cut out instantly, leaving me in total darkness. I didn't sleep. I watched the sun come up with bloodshot eyes clutching the knife. Around 8:00 a.m. I saw a vehicle approaching far below. A green Forest Service Jeep. Real people. I watched through the binoculars. 2 men in uniform got out. I recognized one of them. It was Arthur, the guy who had this job before me. I'd seen his photo in the personnel file on the desk. I unlocked the trapdoor and ran out onto the catwalk, waving my arms frantically. Hey, up here, help me. Arthur looked up. He adjusted his hat, smiled, and waved back. Elias, you okay, son? We heard the radio go dead. We're here to take you home. I almost cried with relief. I started running down the stairs. The metal grated under my boots. I just wanted to get in that Jeep and leave this cursed place. I got to the bottom of the stairs. The heavy security gate was still locked. Arthur was standing on the other side, holding the keys. Open it up, I yelled, grabbing the cold steel bars. Get me out of here. Arthur looked at me. His smile was a little too wide, a little too stretched. His skin looked like it was pulled too tight over his skull. Sure thing, Elias. Just tell me one thing first. What? I panted, looking back up the stairs, terrified that something was following me. Did you follow the rules? Arthur asked calmly. Yes, I did. Now open the damn gate. Arthur nodded slowly. He put the key in the lock. Good, he said, especially rule number 9. I froze. My hands went cold on the metal bars. What? I whispered. Rule number 9, Arthur said, twisting the key. The one on the back of the sheet. I backed away slowly. I remembered the sheet. I remembered flipping it over when I first found it on the first day. The back of the sheet was blank. There was no rule number 9. I looked down at Arthur's hands as he fiddled with the lock. And then I saw it. His fingers. He had too many joints. His fingers were bending backward, twisting in ways bone shouldn't twist. They looked like spider legs. I looked down at his feet. He was wearing heavy ranger boots, but the way he stood, his heels weren't touching the ground. He was balancing on his toes, like a dog standing on its hind legs. Rule number 7 echoed in my mind. If you see a deer standing on its hind legs, it is not a deer. It didn't say anything about a man. I didn't wait for him to open the gate. I turned and scrambled back up the stairs. I ran faster than I ever have in my life, my lungs burning. Behind me, I heard the gate click open. I heard the heavy, wet slap of footsteps hitting the metal stairs. Not boots. Slap. Slap, slap. I slammed the trapdoor shut and piled everything I owned on top of it, the desk, the bed, the broken radio. That was 3 days ago. I'm currently recording this on my phone. The battery is at 4%. They are still outside. They don't knock anymore. They just stand on the catwalk, tapping on the glass with those long, broken fingers, smiling Arthur's smile. I'm so thirsty. Wait, I hear something, a helicopter. Yes, I can see it through the skylight. A search and rescue chopper coming over the ridge. Oh my God, I'm saved. I'm going to wave to them. I'm going to open the window. Wait, the chopper. It's silent. Why is a helicopter silent and I can see the pilot? Why is the pilot wearing my face?